My name is Laura, and what I'm about to share has haunted every day and every night since it began. I live in a quiet suburb in Pennsylvania with my 6-year-old son, Ethan. We moved here a year ago trying to piece our lives back together after the sudden loss of my husband, Daniel. He passed away in a car accident. A truck ran a red light on his way home from work. I never got to say goodbye. Ethan took it hard as any child would. He was very close to his father, and in those first few months he would often talk to Daniel's pictures or whisper into thin air, like he was having full-blown conversations with someone. I assumed it was his way of coping, of processing a loss too big for someone his age to understand. Then, about 3 months after the funeral, he started mentioning a friend. At first, he called him Danny. My heart clenched every time I heard that name, but I figured it was a coincidence. Kids often pick up names from things they overhear. But then one morning I overheard Ethan whispering in his room, "Danny says he's cold. He wants to sleep in Daddy's bed again." I froze. Again? I pushed the door open and there he was, sitting cross-legged on the floor, talking to nothing. "Who's Danny, baby?" I asked gently. He smiled and said, "He's my friend. He plays with me when I'm lonely. He misses you too." I tried to keep my voice steady. "What does he look like?" He tilted his head. "He looks like Daddy, but he's got that big scratch on his neck now." I felt like the floor disappeared beneath me. Daniel had a deep gash on the left side of his neck when they pulled him from the wreck. It wasn't in the official report, but the coroner told me, privately when I asked. I never told anyone, especially not Ethan. That night I started recording his room. It began as audio on my phone, but I soon bought a baby monitor with video and night vision. I felt ridiculous, like I was slipping into paranoia, but something inside me said this wasn't normal. The first few nights, nothing happened. Just the soft hum of the night and Ethan's breathing. Then on the 5th night, I heard him whisper, "Okay, I'll ask her tomorrow, but I don't think she's ready to go yet." I rewound the clip, played it again and again. The next morning, I asked Ethan what he meant. He shrugged, poking at his cereal. "Danny said it's almost time, that you'll be with him soon. He said you're really tired lately." He wasn't wrong. I had been tired, unnaturally so. Waking up with nosebleeds ringing in my ears, blurry vision that doctors couldn't explain. But how did Danny know? Over the next few weeks, things escalated. I started finding Ethan's toys arranged in strange patterns, circles always with one toy in the middle. He said Danny showed him a game from the other side. Lights flickered constantly in his room. Batteries drained within hours. And I started hearing things, not just in the recordings, but with my own ears. Whispers always around 3:33 a.m., the same time Daniel's death certificate listed as his time of death. Once I woke up to a soft weight on the bed beside me. I turned thinking Ethan had climbed in, but there was nothing there except a long scratch on the sheets, starting from the center of the bed and running right off the side. One night I was going through the recordings again. Ethan was asleep, but then his door creaked open slowly on the monitor. A tall, dark figure stood there just out of reach of the night vision clarity. Then Ethan stirred. "Danny," he whispered sleepily. "You're scaring me. You look all wrong." The figure turned sharply and vanished. I don't mean walked away. I mean vanished, like it blinked out of reality. That was the night I brought Ethan into my room permanently, but it didn't stop. The air in the house felt wrong. Heavy. Sometimes I'd walk into the kitchen and find the faucet running. or I'd hear the back door unlock by itself. And always that whisper, almost time. One evening, Ethan looked up at me while drawing and said, "Danny says the accident wasn't an accident." I nearly dropped the plate I was holding. "What do you mean?" I asked. He said someone wanted him gone, that his brakes were cut. He said you shouldn't trust the man with the red tie. I couldn't breathe, because Daniel had mentioned a week before he died that he thought someone at work was trying to sabotage him. Some issue over a whistleblowing complaint. And at the funeral, the regional director from his company came, a man I'd never met. He wore a bright red tie. I felt like I was losing my grip on reality. Desperate, I reached out to a paranormal investigator I found online. He was skeptical, until he listened to one of the audio files. Halfway through, a second voice came through, deep, gravelly, not Ethan's. "She'll join me soon." The investigator agreed to come that weekend. He never made it. Car crash, single vehicle, swerved off the road into a ditch. No signs of braking, exactly like Daniel. I started sleeping with the lights on, and every night the whisper got closer. Then one night, Ethan woke up screaming. I rushed in and he was curled in the corner, eyes wide, pointing to the ceiling. "He's mad. He says you broke the promise." "What promise?" He cried. "You said you'd come. You said you'd die too." I was shaking. "No, baby, I never said that." He sobbed. "But he said you did. He said you promised before he left that you'd be together forever, even if you had to die too." And then I remembered. The night before Daniel died, we had a fight, a bad one. I told him I didn't want him taking that route home. It was dangerous. He laughed it off, said, "I'll be fine, Laura. And hey, if I'm not, we go together, okay?" He meant it as a joke. I said, "Yeah, forever, even in death." I never thought it would matter. Now, I'm not so sure. I moved us out of the house the next morning, left everything behind, new town, new number, no forwarding address. But sometimes Ethan still talks in his sleep, and last night I swear I heard the whisper again, closer than it's ever been. She promised. And this morning, there was a long scratch on the inside of my bedroom door. It was late October, and the crisp mountain air carried the sharp, resinous scent of pine, thick and unmistakable, especially in the San Bernardino Mountains this time of year. The call came in at 6 a.m. just as dawn struggled to break through the lingering fog. A relay tower on a remote ridge near Big Bear Lake had gone offline. No cell service, no internet, nothing. The company needed it fixed immediately, and I was the guy they sent. The lineman for impossible jobs in impossible places. I loaded my truck the night before, climbing harness, tools, ropes, spare cables, and enough provisions for a full day's work in case I got stranded. I poured a thermos of strong coffee and headed out, driving east on Highway 38. The road wound tightly through dense forests of towering ponderosa pines, the fog clinging low in the valleys like a ghostly veil. By the time I reached Forest Service Road 2N10, the sun had climbed higher but barely pierced the canopy. The tower was visible ahead, a rusted 120-foot steel skeleton standing on a rocky outcrop, surrounded by a rusty chain-link fence. It looked like something out of another era, an old AT&T relay tower from the 70s built to last but showing its age. I parked, grabbed my gear, and did a quick inspection. The equipment shed was locked tight, and from the ground the tower looked intact. The cables seemed fine, the microwave dish steady. but the forest around me was unnaturally quiet. No bird sang, no breeze rustled the branches, just silence. Deep, oppressive silence that made the hair on my arm stand on end. I told myself it was nerves and started the climb. The metal ladder was cold under my gloves, the rungs biting into my palms as I ascended. About 60 feet up, I heard it, a low hum like a distant generator vibrating through the steel frame and straight into my bones. I stopped, hands gripping the cold rungs, scanning the fog-shrouded treetops all around. Nothing, no wind, no engines, just that deep, resonant hum. I shook it off, blaming my imagination or some strange echo. At the top, I clipped into the safety rail and began inspecting the microwave dish. Storms had probably loosened the bolts, so I set to tightening them with my wrench. That's when I noticed the scratches, deep, jagged gouges carved into the steel frame around the dish. They were fresh, bright metal shining where the paint had been scraped away. No animal could have clawed that high, and no vandal would waste the effort up here in the wilderness. A cold shiver ran down my spine. I brushed my fingers over the marks, the metal biting at my skin, and tried to focus on my work. But then the hum shifted. A rhythmic tapping joined it like knuckles drumming on metal. The sound came from below me, somewhere along the tower. I leaned over the platform and called out, "Hello?" My voice echoed oddly through the fog, but no reply came. The tapping quickened, deliberate, impatient. I climbed down a few rungs to investigate, but the moment I moved, the sound stopped abruptly. I froze, straining to hear, when suddenly a whisper drifted from above. Soft, unintelligible words, like someone muttering just out of earshot. I jerked my head up, heart pounding. The platform was empty. My years alone on towers like this usually made me steady, unafraid. But this was different. The tower felt alive, watching me. I tried to hurry, finishing the repairs, but the whispers grew louder, clearer, turning into fragmented phrases I couldn't understand. I checked my radio. Dead. No static, no signal. My phone was useless too. No bars, no GPS. The fog thickened around the tower, swirling and dense, swallowing the ground until I could barely see 10 feet below. Then I saw it. A shadow moving across the dish's shiny surface. Not a bird or a cloud. Something human-shaped, standing just behind me. I whipped around, wrench raised, but the platform was empty. I swallowed the lump in my throat. I wasn't alone. I began my descent, hands shaking, heart hammering. The tapping returned, louder, closer, joined by a scraping noise like metal dragged along steel. I looked down and saw dark handprints smeared in soot on the rungs below me. They hadn't been there when I climbed up. Frozen, I listened to the whispers swell into a chorus. Overlapping voices chanting words I couldn't make out. My pace quickened, boots slipping on the metal ladder as panic took hold. At 30 feet, the tower jolted violently, as if something enormous had slammed into it. I clung desperately to the rungs, the harness strap cutting into my shoulder. The hum grew deafening, vibrating through my chest, the whispers turning into screams. Sharp, agonized, coming from all directions. I looked up in terror. For a split second, I saw it. A figure crouched on the platform above, its head twisted at an unnatural angle, eyes hollow and black, staring straight at me. I don't remember the rest. Fear drove me to the ground and I ran without looking back, tools clattering behind me. The fog was a wall, but I sprinted to my truck, fumbling for the keys. The screams pursued me, echoed by heavy footsteps crunching gravel. I slammed the door and floored it down the road, the tower disappearing behind me like a nightmare. When I reported the job incomplete, my boss thought I'd lost it. I quit the next day, but it never ended. On cold, foggy nights, the hum creeps back into my mind, low and constant beneath the silence. The tapping, slow and deliberate, like someone knocking from beyond the walls of my sanity. And the whispers always whispering just beyond understanding. Last week I woke to a cold draft, shadows crawling across my ceiling. I flipped on the light, nothing there. But in the darkness, eyes stared from the corner, hollow, black, unblinking. A voice, cracked and hollow, whispered my name. It's still waiting, watching, patient. And I know it's coming back.